Hi, friends. Hi, Super Planner Girl. Hi, all. Thanks so much for joining. Happy Wednesday. I was going to upload an Instagram story just to remind you all to join today if you could because I missed last week's. Just so much going on, and then I forgot to do that. So I put up a note on Instagram, but hopefully you got notifications and yeah, hopefully we'll just have some fun today. It's going to be super chill as always because Wednesdays, middle of the week, you're trying to get projects done or trying to get going. The last thing we want to do is have a super intense stream. So chill as always. Needle Girl, how are you? How's it going? How have you been? Nibs and Wax, good afternoon. Happy time zone, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I hope I hope the weather is behaving where you are. I hope you're enjoying the day, whether it's, fall weather, like here in Vancouver. It's actually pretty rainy. We had a little bit of a break yesterday and today, but I think we have a rainfall warning, so it just means a lot of rain. Indy, how's it going? You got a Twitch notification, Super Planner Girl. Yay! I'm so glad you did as well. Happy Wednesday. All good. Did anyone get anything for Fountain Pen Day? Because I sure didn't. I felt like there were a good number of deals, and for me, Fountain Pen Day is kind of like Pelican Hubs. Like, it's kind of a community day. And I love the posts people are sharing about their first and most recent fountain pen purchases, what their favorite fountain pens are, what inks they're using, currently inked. I love all those posts and things that people shared. And yeah, it was just, I felt like there was a lot sort of going on Fountain Pen Day, and I hope you were able to, even if you didn't buy anything like me, I hope you were able to sort of take out the stationery and the inks and pens that you enjoy. And I hope you were able to have some fun with them, play with them, use them. It's starting to get a bit warmer out here in Southwest Ohio. It snowed earlier this week. Whoa. That's like Toronto. Yeah, I have some friends and I have family who live in Ontario, Canada, and yeah, they had snow earlier this week. So I lived there for a long time, and I moved over to British Columbia probably 5-ish years ago, and I have to say I do not miss the snow because it just slows everything down, and it's just a hassle. But also there's a lot more rain out here on the West Coast, which I feel like is a fair trade for snow. But that's just me. So if you like the snow, like my kids, they love snow. And the one day, maybe a couple of days a year that we get snow, like really good snow in Vancouver, the schools are closed because we cannot handle it on the West Coast. We don't know how to handle snow over here. And the kids get the day off school. So they're looking forward to that day to come. I got a bottle of ink. Indy, it's here this morning. What ink did you get? We have Halloween and Christmas decorations up outside, and it looks insane. Yeah, Halloween, Christmas. I know, right? It's like, when do you do the transition? Pretty much after Halloween. It's kind of like, it's up to you. Sometimes it's fair game. It's been too cold to finish it. Yeah. Still have some snow on the porch this morning. Oh no, Indy. I have to laugh. I placed the wet pen order and thought I was safe because I'm not a super fan of Sheen, but Adam is. Oh no. I did see a lot about the wet pen. So yeah, let me know how you like those inks. I also got a bottle of ink, but off of Reddit. Diamine Kong. Oh. And your weather is nuts. Freezing earlier this week. Yeah, I know. So weird, right? How weather is sometimes. It's just kind of crazy. Monteverde Beta Fish. Blue. Oh, awesome. I don't know any of these. um, inks. Beta fish blue. I'm going to look that up because that sounds really cool. Let's see. Is that from the DC pen show? Or maybe not. Now let's see if I... Really quick. This one. That's a nice blue. I like that. That's like a... It leans teal. I like that. Teal is kind of... It's one of those ink colors that I always kind of... It's good. I'll use any teal, really. I finally got it. I got Giant Pacific Octopus from the Wet Pen. Nibs and Wax. Awesome. Got the Inky Converters ink. Awesome. Has a bit of sheen, but I don't think shimmer. Yeah. I'm okay with a little sheen. I always kind of hesitate when it's like heavy sheen because it just takes so long to dry and it's too much. It's pretty in my pen though. Yeah. Yeah. Tealy blue. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that. So cool. I love the different, the different shades of inks once you're into like a certain color. I love sort of going through and finding like the shades that kind of work for me too. So what have I been up to this week? Monday and Tuesday were a day off for the kids. Monday was just a professional development day at their school, so they had the day off. Yesterday was Remembrance Day in Canada. So we went to the local ceremony that the city put on. It was really nice. It was a nice moment for my kids also to sort of, reflect on things, reflect on history, hope it never repeats, and, show respect and that we never forget, right? And then they're back in school today. So that's why I'm back to my routine and streaming and just being around everyone, being around you all. And then recently I posted my Substack post. I have a Substack. It's kind of a bloggy thing. I like to blog once in a while, do long form written content. And I try and do like a monthly sort of roundup of like things that are happening, content that I posted, pen shows or events that I went to, and kind of share like my experience and things. So this is my most recent sort of update on just like what's been happening over the summer, the past few months, the past quarter. So a little bit about the 2 pen shows that I was able to go to over the summer. If you haven't watched my haul streams, do that. They're recaps on YouTube. And then I also uploaded some footage that I had taken in Portland and San Francisco, but I didn't have enough to kind of publish it on YouTube and make it a vlog. And so I just threw it in here. So if you just kind of want to see like snippets of both the pen shows that I went to over the summer, take a look. And then just like things I've been part of that have been kind of fun. So if you like to sort of read content and, stationary bits and bobs, then subscribe to my Substack. It's free. It's just kind of like a newsletter. I treat it like a newsletter. So, every month I kind of do a recap. And then if I want to do like a planner sort of, like my next piece of content will probably be my 2026 planner lineup, what I'm going to be using next year, planner for planning and journaling. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Pop Out Gal, hi, how's it going, friend? You love a good tealy blue? Yeah, I do too. Indy, you had a sample and they had to get the bottle. Isn't that the best way of getting a bottle? I feel like when I transitioned from having a sample to just like falling in love with it and being like, I need a bottle of this, it's just like the greatest feeling because it's like validating that you like that ink. Whereas like, if I go and get a bottle just blindly because I think I'm going to like the color, and then I'm kind of like, it's okay. I feel like, you know what? I'll just give samples of this bottle to my friends and see if they like it. But yeah. So that's one thing. Oh, and then if you listen to the Plotter podcast called Creative Refills, it's co-hosted by Job and April, some of my faves in the pen community. They are awesome, awesome people. And I was a guest on the last podcast episode, so take a look if you haven't and listen to it. And then also this came out. They have the Plotter magazine, and they usually put out, posts every now and then. And some of those posts are like about people in the community, how they use their plotter, how they kind of get the most out of the system for their situation. And so I was able to share some photos of how I used my plotter creatively over, like the first plotter I got was the Mini 6 in 2022. So it's been a couple of years of like figuring out how to use the plotter system for me and make it work. And and I've kind of gone through different sizes and I use them all in different ways. So if you're interested, take a read. I'll share this link as well. It's just kind of fun when, brands take into account like how the community uses their products and stuff like that. It's really fun. So, yeah, I'm enjoying hearing what you're up to. Yeah, I know. I feel like I have like 2 weeks of updates of like, hey, here's what's going on. I also want to hear what you've been up to. So let me know. How is the Chicago Planner Conference? All of these things that are happening, and I see posts and videos on Instagram. I'm like, I want to be there too. Maybe another year. Sunday, I'm going to have Sven make a special bottle of ink for me. Ooh. Do you want to share anything about the color or shade or tease anything? I can't wait to hear how that goes. But that's super cool. I don't think I've had an ink made for me for like with a certain shade. And I know you can sort of like mix inks together and stuff like that, but it's just like really cool if you can get it done by someone. Yeah, let me know what you're up to. Today, what we're going to do is we're just going to do some painting with fountain pen inks. I have some sample vials that I've sort of acquired over the last little bit that have kind of been sitting there. And so I thought, like, I haven't inked up my pens with any of these samples. And I thought it would be kind of fun to just paint with them and chat. So we're going to do some floral painting if we have time, which we probably will. I'll probably do a little bit of painting in here as well. It's the ink archiving book from Dominant Industry. I feel like I should stop neglecting it because I got this a little while ago, and it's the second book in the series. And I've been watching Olive Octopus Lisa paint in it in her streams, and I feel like every time I see Lisa paint in the archiving book, I'm like, yeah, I should take it out and paint. So I will do that. It's just setting aside time to do these things, right? I'm not sure, but I think something like Beta Fish Blue with maybe a bit of shimmer. Ooh, I like that. That's awesome, Indy. I love that you... It was a blast. I was really there to connect with people. Yeah, the vendor market is always nice. Oh, I know, Harmony. Joy Letters was there. Yeah, I saw some of her posts, and I think she taught a workshop. Yeah. So cool. I wish, I'm so curious about like, all of the different like workshops and activities and things that you could do, like seminars that you could do at like planner conferences, pen shows, stationery events. And I want to like go to all of them because they just seem so fun. Like, not only are you hanging out with people who have, you know, the similar tastes, similar interests as you, obviously, because they're there. But you're also like, everyone's just so like friendly, and they want to share their experience. And yeah, and we kind of like know, we recognize these people, right? Even if it's just by username, we're like, oh yeah, you're this person. Kind of at a pen show where you're like, what's your username? Because, you know, I don't know your real name, which is totally fine. But it is kind of fun, right? You're meeting people that you've engaged with and had conversations with online, and meeting them in person is like super, super cool. It's just, especially if you click right away, especially if it's like, yeah, we get along. Believe it or not, fountain pens are still rare in the planner community. Yeah, you know what? I'm not surprised. At the same time, I feel like, I think if there's going to be a push in the planner community for using fountain pens, I think there has to be sort of a push from different planner brands to have fountain pen friendly paper. Like, it's just gonna, it has to be that way, right? And I find that a lot of people who have the crossover between fountain pens and planners, like myself, you know, we already kind of, we're set in the type of paper that we like to use, the type of planner or notebooks that we'd like to use. And I think the brands that we turn to are trying to keep up with that, right? Like, for example, Hobonichi. And if their paper falls short of what our expectations are, all of a sudden they hear from us as a community. And I think the planner community is just so broad, and there's so many different planner brands that people are like, you take your choice of planners, right? Really, like, whatever works for you is fine. Whether you use it functionally or, you know, to have some sort of aesthetic look to it. But if you're going to do the crossover to fountain pens, there's that balance that you have to strike. And I think if you're into a certain type of planner and a layout, and it has, you know, 120 GSM paper because you like the thick paper, that may not necessarily be in line with using fountain pens or fountain pen inks. All of a sudden it's like, which one should I use, right? So, but I do like that stationary people in general are very open to different types of tools. And, you know, if it's fountain pens, even if you're using like a Lamy Safari or, you know, Preppy or something like that, it's like, whatever, just the joy of using a fountain pen. I like it. I encourage it as well. So, yeah, I think it might take a little while before it's sort of like a real crossover between the two, but you keep enabling people, Papa Gal. Yeah, you recognize people by username or their hands. I know, as creepy as it sounds, you're kind of like, ooh, I know those nails. I've seen many videos with your nails in them. Many planners are not fountain pen friendly. Yeah, for sure. And that's fine. You know, you don't need to use fountain pens in planners, even if you are a fountain pen person. Like, you know, I use fountain pens mostly in my journals. And if they don't work in the planner, like if you're using, you know, non-fountain pen friendly paper, whether it's in a notebook or a planner, yeah, there are many, many other tools you can use instead too. Super planner girl, you use Erin Condren? Yeah, until you fell in love with fountain pens, and that's how I ended up with Hobonichi. Yes, I totally hear that. I used like all kinds of different planners before I got into fountain pens, and also before I realized that there was fountain pen friendly paper available in notebook and planner version. And I feel like once you make that crossover to really nice paper, it's hard to go back, or it's hard to sort of, you know, use paper that isn't smooth and, you know, soft and has the crinkly sound. And not for everyone, you know, it really is up to what works for you. But for me, I found that as soon as I found Hobonichi and like fountain pen friendly paper, I'm just like moving further and further into that rabbit hole. I'm like, what else can I use? What other paper can I use? I have to admit, I'm having a little bit of a paper existential crisis. It is not dramatic, but what's happening is I'm starting to find that I really love Midori cream paper. And I think it sort of started with Plotter, where it's kind of like an off-white sort of cream paper. And using it consistently, I'm starting to feel like now I'm more into cream and beige than the white, like Hobonichi Tomoe River Paper. And so I don't know what that means for 2026 and what kind of paper all of my notebooks are going to be in. But if you are like me and you sort of whiffle waffle between different types of paper, colors, thickness of the papers and things like that, then yeah, I see you. I am right there with you. And it's kind of fun, to figure out what you're going to be using. At the same time, I feel like, yeah, I'm just going to ride this wave and see where it takes me. I can't go back. I'm so spoiled. I know we are. We're so spoiled. And then if it doesn't work for us, we get to let them know that it's not up to our standards. I'm weird. I get a dot grid notebook and make my own planner pages. That is not weird, Indy. That is actually very smart. And also, I've started to experiment a little bit with making traveler's notebook inserts. So if you have leftover paper in your TN inserts or otherwise, it's kind of fun, right? It's kind of fun to like put different papers together and make inserts. So I totally get you. I can see why that would be like, you get to choose what kind of paper you put in your planners or your journals. So yeah. I started with the wrong Hobonichi. The A6 size is too small for me. Then you move up, and then at some point you're like, oh, maybe I'll do an A6 again. Hi, Kiara the Bard. How's it going? I'm still trying to figure out my 2026 lineup for the reasons you just mentioned. Yeah, it is kind of fun, but also, can you believe we're in November? Who is starting their planners in December? Because I know Hobonichi, especially if you're using the weeks, they have weekly November or December spreads or pages. And I remember for last year, like going into 2025, I started in December because I feel like not only are you really excited to use your planner, so if you get to start in December, it's like, yay, you get to start a month early. But also I find that the transition between December and January, like that sort of New Year transition, is a lot of pressure. Like, you're meant to sort of like celebrate and reflect on a year ending and a new year starting. And if you're going to be using a whole new notebook system or, planners that you haven't used in the previous year, it's kind of a lot of pressure to jump right in January 1st and get it right from the get-go, right? Or is it just me? I don't know. But I felt like a December start is sort of like a gentle start into the planners. And so this year I'm using a Plotter as my main sort of catch-all planner, and I'm using the Hobonichi Weeks as kind of my everyday carry planner. And so I won't be using a Weeks next year, but I will be continuing the Plotter, and that's less pressure because it's just like a continuation of the system, right? But I can feel that if you're going to be jumping into a whole brand new book, that, I don't know. So I'm asking you if you're like, do you wait until January to kind of like jump into your new planner layouts, or do you kind of do like a rolling start? Hello, it's Haywee. How's it going? Welcome. Thanks for joining. Playing with a sample of my new favorite shimmer ink. Awesome. What is the new shimmer ink? And what is it? What's your new favorite shimmer ink? I'm going to try to start in December. Yeah, starting in December with my weeks. Yeah, I didn't get a weeks this year, so I'm stuck waiting for January magical quill. Good luck. Starting in December last year was fun. Yeah. Hello, Fountain Pen News. How are you? How's your week going so far? And do you have your planner? Do you use a planner? Do you have a planner system set up for 2026? Do you know what you're using? Lennon Toolbar Ying Pao. I probably misspelled that. I probably mispronounced it. So Lennon Toolbar is super fun though. I really want to be intentional with what I use, even pare down with. Yeah, I think by the time I decide it will be January or later, which is totally fine. Like I kind of like having I guess pared down is the best way to describe it, but having like foundational planner and journal system, because I know that I'm going to use a planner. I know that I need a journal and, a memory keeper and all the other things. So I have like my sort of basic lineup where I know what I need to be using. And then the fun of it is adding, books that I want to experiment with, or layouts that I want to try out, like, create different spreads or use inserts in different ways in my plotter and stuff. And so that's kind of the fun of it. I don't like to put too much pressure on having everything laid out before the year even ends, because I know as soon as, I don't know about you, but as soon as I decide for sure, like this is my lineup, it's not going to change. It is undoubtedly going to change. It's because, a planner brand or a brand that we love will release something that we didn't account for or that we didn't know was coming. And all of a sudden, you're like, wait, questioning your whole lineup and your whole plan. And I feel like sometimes that happens with me. But if I have, my fundamental books that I need, then if I want to add on top of it, it's kind of like a, experiment. We'll see how it goes. But I think I feel pretty good about where next year is going to head in terms of my planners and journals, and just kind of continuing what works for me and changing out what didn't really work. And I feel like I used a lot of dated systems this year, Hobonichi being sort of the core of that system, Plotter kind of rounding it out. And next year, I'm sort of sticking with Plotter, Traveler's Notebook. I have a Hobonichi 5-year I'll continue using. And then on top of that, just like undated notebooks, because if I want to jump in and out of them, then I feel free to do that. So like Traveler's Notebook inserts, being able to use them for collaging and just like, having fun, being creative. I think that's kind of my focus for next year, but we'll see. I've been trying watercolor my journal, which I'm falling in love with. Oh, awesome. I sort of want to dive into fountain pen world. Welcome. But yes, I started sort of with watercolor painting in my journals and just in general. And then I acquired a lot of fountain pen ink bottles and decided that painting with fountain pen inks is also fun and a great way of using up some of that ink that you might not, like if you acquire some inks and you're kind of not feeling it in your fountain pens, it's a great way of using up some of that ink, especially if people give you ink samples, which I find a lot of people in the community are so willing to share the inks that they do have. It's a great way of using them as well. I hope I can see the northern lights tonight. Yeah, they were supposed to be really noticeable in Vancouver last night, and where we are, I couldn't see any, or I couldn't see it in the sky, but yeah, it would be really nice to see it. If you are joining for the first time, or if you're watching the recap or the replay of the video, I'm Corolla. On socials, you can find me as From Corolla. And yeah, I'm a stationery enthusiast. Love fountain pens, love painting with watercolor and fountain pen inks, but I love all things stationery. So I'm into planning, I'm into journaling, I love notebooks, everything. So yeah, if you have any questions or you just want to chat, feel free. We are just gonna hang out, and I am gonna get started because I think Brad, the pen addict, who if you don't follow or watch his streams, You should, because he's amazing, a really great human being, and such a great enabler. But also, he sort of helps bring community together. And one of the first people probably that I watched stream on Twitch and thought, what a great community. I want to be part of this community. And I want to, and eventually I started streaming because of people like Brad and Lisa and, other people who sort of stream and share what they're up to. So, yeah, definitely welcome in. But yes, Brad is streaming at 11, I think. So I'm going to try and raid his stream because I've never been able to do that. And he's raided my stream. So we're going to do it to him today. Yeah, Paul Pagel, I love using watercolor in my journal. I will say as a newbie to the fountain pen world, it's definitely a good time. Yes, it is. It's so crazy and fun. My daughter said, Mom, I see red pillars of light. Yeah, the colors were just so, so cool. Are those the Northern Lights, or are my glasses just super dirty? That's so funny. We drove about 50 miles to get to the darker skies. Oh, interesting. Yes, you should go watch Brad's stream from yesterday. Wow, very cool. Very red. Wow, awesome. So cool. Thanks for sharing that. Fountain pen use. Very cool. The best plunking in a good long while. I love the orange gloves, by the way, fountain pen use. I love the orange gloves. I know they were a little bit extra, but I feel like they were worth it. I'll do that tonight. I couldn't see the lights because of our street lights. Yeah, you do have to kind of it has to be the right sort of conditions, right, in the sky to see it too. So there's 4 inks that I'm going to be painting with. This one, Sailor 767, is from the Sailor Ink Studio line, which, so this was a sample, and I think it's really green. I'll show you. And it may be a little bit too green for the types of greens that I like to ink up in my fountain pens. And so I prefer to paint with it, especially because it's such a nice green for leaves and foliage in my abstract flowers. So, and then the second ink I'm going to use is Robert Oster Gold Antiqua. It's this color, which I think is a great fall edition. And I also have Kobe Alice's Dream, which I think is a shimmer ink. I forget now, but we'll see. It might not actually be. It might not be a shimmer ink. And then the fourth one is Sailor Manyo Fuji. Alice's Dream is an amazing shader. Yeah, I think you're right, Super Planet Girl. So a couple of Sailor inks that I have, the Kobe and Robert Oster, which is always a great brand of inks. I really want to live somewhere where dark skies within reasonable driving distance. Yeah, unless you have to drive through it, Needle Girl, because ever since the time change a week ago, what day is it today? Last week, right? When we fell back an hour, all of a sudden now it's when I'm driving around 5 p.m, it's really dark. And so I'm driving down streets where, you know, we have like street lamps like every block or so. And I'm like, oh no, I can't see. Yeah, so unless it's like that. But it is really nice to be out in the dark and if you can see stars where you are. That slow your roll sign was in the actual middle of nowhere. Really? That was cool. Yeah, the orange gloves. Best $20, right? Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, so let's start painting. So I'm going to do two paintings, which I usually do on my stream. I use the Everyday book from Galen Leather. It is blank Tomoe River Paper, and I use it because it gives me sort of a read in terms of how the ink behaves on Tomoe River Paper, because most of my current planners and journals and notebooks have TRP. And so it's a great way of sort of experiencing the inks before I ink them up in a fountain pen to see how they behave on TRP, whether, you know, they're shimmery or they have sheen or anything like that, secondary properties. And I find that painting with it, obviously, you know, you're using so much more of the ink and it gives you such a better idea of what the different properties of that ink is. And also I love the crinkle. You can't get away from the crinkle. Right, Magical Quill? I cannot step away from the crinkle. But I do also like to use watercolor paper because the paper is made to handle a lot of water. And so, you know, you can sort of go all in with using inks, but also watering them down, diluting them a little bit. And even though you won't get that sort of saturated feel if you do add a lot of water, it's a kind of a nice way of sort of seeing the more muted tone of the shade that you're using. And still, you know, I feel like, or I find that watercolor paper handles shimmer and sheen really well, and it tends to reflect all that back. So I kind of do both, especially because on fountain pen paper or fountain pen friendly paper, you can use a lot of ink, though, you know, I only use one side of the paper because if it bleeds through, then, you know, you don't want to be using the other side of the paper. But I'm okay with that. So the first ink, I'm just going to do a little swatch here. This one is Alice's Dream. So I'm just going to put a little bit of ink down. I use round paintbrushes that I only use for inks. So these ones I will not use for watercolor paint. I'll just use them for inks because even if you sort of clean them, I like to just have a set that is dedicated to playing with inks. And I like round brushes because you can use the, you know, the different, like you could use the tip, you can press down on it, and you can get different shapes and sort of different outlines as you go. So that's Alice's Dream, which already you can kind of tell as it's going down on paper. It's going to be such a nice ink when it dries. And then this one is Fuji from Sailor. Just a really nice ink. I think I've inked it up a couple of times in a pen. Stupid Chalupa, thanks so much for the follow. Thanks for being here. I'm here for the crinkle. Yeah, everyone's here for the crinkle. My little one is in a school musical this week, and she was saying she'll just walk home from rehearsal at 6:30. Yeah. And I said, yeah, right? Like, it's so dark. It's like, it's only 6:30, but it's so dark. It feels like it's like 9:30 or something. Yeah, I totally hear you. So just putting down a little bit of Sailor Manyo Fuji. And it kind of looks nice. It's just like a darker, brings out a little bit of a darker sort of shade to the piece. Then we have Robert Oster. I'll put it here. Gold Antiqua. And I chose this because of sort of the fall colors. And kind of makes a nice accent. Just adding it to the sides. The other thing I like about painting with inks too is that you get those ink properties in there, but also you can kind of layer and blend a little bit with other inks that you have that you wouldn't do in a fountain penning or a fountain pen, that I personally wouldn't do in a fountain pen, mixing different inks together and stuff. But on paper, I feel like, just whatever. Like if you want to sort of mix inks together, have them blend, have them sort of flow into each other. I feel like it's kind of a fun way of experimenting and getting to know the inks a little bit and seeing what other colors they kind of work with as well. So, hi Red Kite, how's it going? A lovely color you just finished with. Yeah, they're all really nice, aren't they? Yeah, for sure. Kobe, Alice's Dream, and then Sailor Manyo, Fuji. These are the two sort of very interesting inks, especially if you're into like the blue, purples, and those kinds of shades. It's kind of nice to have them sort of work together in that way. And then the fourth ink is the green, which is very, very green. So for me, I feel like this is the kind of green I wouldn't necessarily ink a pen up with. It's just a personal preference thing. It's like too green for me. I like more of an olivey shade. Like if it's an olive green, it's fine. Maybe like if it leans a little bit more yellow, or if it's teal, then I'm good. But if it's like a true bright green, I'm not sure if I would really ink up a pen, but I love painting with this green because it's so bright and just vibrant, and it works so well with the kind of painting I do. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of this gold, it's Robert Oster ink, just to make it a little bit more like autumny. And darken it up a little bit as well. These colors are lovely, yeah. I feel like they're great all year. Yeah, they're not really like super autumn colors, but they're actually not autumn colors, these two especially. They're like the kind of colors you can ink up all year. And just like good, like daily type of colors, I think. I love Robert Oster. Hydrangea purple. Yes, that's right. Yeah, it totally is. Yeah, that's amazing that she's in the school musical for sure. Very cool. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. So we'll set that aside. And I'm going to move on to the watercolor paper. And then we'll kind of compare the different colors. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing where I start with one ink. Yeah, I'm gonna do it this way. And you can see on watercolor paper, you can put a lot more ink down and kind of play with it that way. And if you just add a little bit of water, you can dilute it a little bit. I'll swatch here. Zodiac Penco, how's it going, Bart? Long time no talk. Where have you been? What have you been up to? And thanks so much for subscribing, joining the club. How was your fountain pen day? Curl, I want to watch you paint all day. Yes, why not? I am not adding water with each stroke. I'm basically just dipping back into my little ink wells that I put ink in. But you can add a little bit of water if you want to dilute it. I find that these colors aren't super dark. If I'm painting with a darker color, sometimes I add a little bit of water just to... But what I like to do is once I put the ink down, you'll notice that I kind of move it around a lot. So if I put, you know, a little bit of ink here, I kind of like to move it. And that way it kind of takes up a lot more space and just naturally dilutes it a little bit as I go. So that's kind of a fun way to spread out your ink a little bit too. Especially because once you put down your ink, it's going to be saturated, just like when you first start writing with a fountain pen and you sort of get that like really dark saturated version of your ink because it's sitting on that tip just waiting to go down on paper. But once, like if you do long form writing and you just kind of keep writing with it as you go, you'll find that the ink starts to lighten up a little bit. Or a lot, depending on what ink you're using. And it's kind of interesting because the longer you write with a pen, and you kind of get like a lighter version of that ink as you go. And I think it's similar to like when you're painting with it and you kind of put down, you know, that first little bit of ink, it's like very saturated. But as you move it along, obviously with your paintbrush, you get a little bit more of a diluted, muted version of that ink, which is interesting and very fun. And then if you layer on top of ink that's already there, and that ink is still a little bit wet, then you can start to reactivate that ink a little bit. And that's when you'll see some mixing, some blending happening. But if that ink is dry, then you tend to get a little bit more of the true version of the ink that you put on top. So yeah, no worries. Always happy to explain as I go. Especially because I'm just like in my element, just doing my thing. But, you know, I often have to kind of think about like if I'm doing this on stream, then it's not always clear what I'm doing or why I'm doing something, which is very cool. I love sort of explaining certain things, especially if you're going to do it this on your own time as well. It's kind of nice to build on what you've seen other people do and explore it for yourself. But if you can kind of understand why, you know, certain things are done or like techniques or whatever, some tips, then it's like you can build on that. So hopefully it makes it a little bit easier. And yeah, just a little bit more fun. Oh, the green ink is Sailor 767 from the Sailor Ink Studio line. You've been here from the beginning. You've been lurking, Bart. You never get my notifications. I feel like everyone gets the notifications except you, Bart. How are your list of notifications going? Are they still overwhelming? You're like the only person who has the most notifications ever. Your daughter is going to take her driver's permit test today. Wow, amazing. Super planner girl. Well, good luck to her. And she'll ace it. It'll be fine. Such a good teacher. Thank you. I purchased watercolor TN inserts, and this could be fun to try. Yeah, try it out. I've heard mixed reviews on the watercolor insert for TN, and I have to admit I don't have one. I feel like I should try it out just to try it out. But I'd be curious to hear what you sort of think of the watercolor insert. Oh, you've been a subscriber since the beginning. Oh, thanks, Zodiac. I appreciate you. Also, you could have just said you've been here in the stream since the beginning, and I would have like, okay, great. She's so excited. I know. I can totally feel that. My nephew is 16 and got his we have a graduated licensing process, and so he's got the first so he can drive, but he has to have an experienced driver beside him. But I think he's going for his full driving test soon. So yeah, the excitement is right, it's really, really cool. I've just been driving forever, so it's not exciting anymore, but I'll try it out and let you know. Yeah, definitely. Try watercolor and fountain pen ink. Yeah, for sure. Hopefully it's fine. I mean, it's watercolor paper, so it should handle both fine, paints and inks. So these inks are drying still, and I always find it interesting to compare how fountain pen inks perform on Tomoe River Paper, or fountain pen friendly paper, versus watercolor paper, which is for painting. And how they sort of, differ, or if they're pretty similar. And I find that I'm finding the Robert Oster gold Antiqua is a little bit more brown, maybe, than maybe on TRP. I get a little bit more of the green coming through. It's definitely not as vibrant as it is on watercolor paper, which, is interesting. But nothing too drastic. So I also have the archiving book from Dominant Industry, which is also fountain pen friendly paper, because it's from Dominant Industry, who also makes inks. But also I find that you can use quite a bit of water. And even though, you get a little bit of the paper warping because you're using water or more ink than you normally would, it still handles it really well. I think the only sort of bleed through I had here was from using the Octopus Fluids Unicorn, which is a super sheener. You can see it there. And yeah, so just a concentrated version, or a concentrated sort of putting down that ink. Bled through a little bit, which is okay. But for the most part, the inks I've used, even with water, they've been really good on this paper. Here, just painting with it. A little bit of warping is fine. Yeah. And I like that, like, you can paint on one side and then still paint on the other side, depending on the ink you're using. But let's put down a little bit of ink here as well, because I still have some sitting in my inkwell. So it's kind of nice, like, you know, when you're cleaning out a fountain pen or you have ink samples that are kind of just sitting there and you don't really use them, like, you know, some of the greens, like I said, I'm not a super fan of true greens in a fountain pen. But I love painting with them. And so I kind of compromise with, you know, having samples that I can paint with, which makes it really fun, and having like a variety of sample inks, right, that you can use in different ways, and still kind of enjoy, have fun with, even if you're not going to ink up all your pens or use up all your sample inks too. So I'm just going to do a little bit of painting while I wait for my florals to dry. Then we'll take a look at those and see how they turn out. I've been emptying my pens into a few paint palettes to use later for painting. Yes, go indie. That's so fun. I'm glad you're doing that. Yeah, I love that. Like, every time I want to sort of move on from an ink in a fountain pen, or even when I buy a new bottle of ink, I take some of that ink and just add it into a vial. Yeah, or even if I'm cleaning out a pen, right? Like, you throw it into a paint palette, cover it if you're not going to paint with it right away. But it's always kind of fun, like, you know, do some painting or do some ink splatter art, you know, whatever you sort of feel comfortable in terms of what you like doing, and what you have time for as well. But it is kind of fun to have, like, to explore your inks in different ways than inking them up in a fountain pen. So instead of dumping them, try and paint with them next time. So yeah, I'm very excited for you, Indy. You get to paint with your inks. Yeah, it is a very good idea. And also have it sitting somewhere where, like, if you're like me, I'm a visual person, so I take my cues visually. If I have ink sitting there on my desk, kind of just eyeing me, giving me the side eye, then I'm more likely to use it. So, you know, even if you have a few minutes to spare to just kind of use a dip pen or a paintbrush or something like that, just grab some of that ink and add it to your journal, or, you know, whatever notebook you kind of have that you can add some ink to. That's a lot of fun. I feel like my mood just, like, I get a little bit of a boost. Just, I don't know, it's, you know, there's a little bit of joy. There's a lot of joy in using your stationery supplies in different ways, as well as, you know, the ways that you're used to. And yeah, it just brings a lot of fun. Can't put it back in your bottle, so it's, yeah, this way it's not wasted. Yeah, I do not throw used ink back into the bottle. It gives me the creeps. Most of it has shimmer. Oh yes, the best types of inks I find to paint with are the ones that have shimmer, especially because if you add them to your standard inks, then they sort of, you know, they add shimmer to the inks that don't have shimmer. So it's kind of fun in that way. And it adds a lot of interest to your whole piece in general, especially as you're kind of like moving around the paper. You can always message me. I can match a pen to any ink you have. True, true. Good to know. It's like, Bart, I need a pen that will match this ink, especially if you're the type that likes to match inks to your pen, which I didn't do before, but as I've acquired more pens, it's like, why not, right? Why not match your inks to your pens? Or vice versa. Get pens that match your inks, the inks that you like using. You know, it's sitting on my art desk. Awesome, Indy. I'm getting an ink made for me Sunday to match a pen of mine. Yeah, that's awesome. It's a mix of several blues. I love that. I was never a pen and ink matcher until I met people in the FP community. Maybe that's what it is. I feel like maybe we sort of, I don't want to say make a big deal about it, but sort of focus on, you know, inks that work well with pens, but also that match pens. And I guess it's like an aesthetic thing, right? When you have an ink that matches perfectly with a pen, it's like, wow, you found the perfect combination. You know, which you don't have to do. Like, I have pens where, you know, if you add like a blue or black or just like a regular sort of daily ink color, you can use any pen really. But some of those pens that I buy, because they're like interesting colors or interesting shades, when I find an ink that's like really close to that shade, it's kind of like a, you know, like you just found something that works really, really well together, which is awesome. And also, before I found the fountain pen community and you know, bought more pens, I only had like a handful of pens. So maybe that sort of plays into it as well. Is if you only have a few pens, then, you know, you're not, I don't know if you're going to be using the same color or the same inks forever. But maybe you're the type of person that just has, you know, a handful of fountain pens and you like your inks a certain color, and that's totally fine. I think I was like that for a while. And then I found the community, and all of a sudden I was like, ooh, I need, you know, I need different brands, I need different colors. But being able to use up the inks in different ways, I think, is what made me fall in love with inks even more than I previously enjoyed. Just because, you know, when you're inking up a fountain pen with an ink, you don't always get to see all of the properties, depending on your nib size as well. So, you know, if you're using the inks to paint or to draw with, you know, to use with a dip pen or something like that, it's kind of a nice way of, you know, using your inks and getting the most out of them too. For Pelican Hub, I put blue ink in a black pen just to trigger everyone. You would. You would do that. People are like, what is happening right now? I'm not surprised. You're like, hey, try my pen. See what you think. Isn't it great? Most of my pens are blue or purple, or most of my inks are too. Yeah, a few greens, but not many. Yeah. I tried to get used to bigger nibs, but still prefer my extra fine. I was like that as well for a long time. Um, Probably because for me, I like all through schooling, I used gel pens and they were like, 0.38 and extra fine sort of tips. And so when I moved over to fountain pens, I did the same. I just went with extra fine. And then I moved on to fine, and I used medium for a while. And then I thought, I really want to enjoy the inks that I'm getting because they have, there's sort of different shades and they come across differently on paper when they dry. And I really wanted to get the most out of the inks that I was using, just for enjoyment and not necessarily just to write with or use functionally. And that's when I started to experiment with broad, double broad, custom nib grinds. And it's sort of now I use nibs that give me line variation is kind of my favorite type of nibs, and broad nibs as well. So if I'm going to go with a stock nib, I usually go with broad, and I love custom grinds as well, especially the ones that give me line variation. So kind of where I am now, but that being said, I still really enjoy my Platinum 3776 that has an ultra extra fine nib, and so that's like needlepoint, and I still enjoy writing with that. I write like quick notes with that I want to dry fast, and it just has a black ink. It's just platinum carbon black, but I have not stopped inking it up. I use a cartridge in it, and I have not stopped inking it up since I got it like a couple years ago. Yeah. We all know Zodiac Penco would do that. Just to give people a little bit of a like, what is happening? A hard time. I purple ink in a black pen. Yeah. I feel like a black pen too, like you can go super bright, right? Like you could do magenta, red, just something really, really fun. And purple that people might not expect right away. And then you can also do like black, just classic, a black pen with black ink. Pretty much anything goes in a black pen. You can even do shimmer and just go all in. That will be my next thing to try, a custom nib grind. Yes, I am 100%. I totally am into custom grinds. Like I think everyone should, at some point in their journey of using fountain pens, should try a custom grind. And if you can get one, all the better, because then it's, customized to your writing style and your writing grip, and the way you use your pen. But yeah, definitely, if you can try a few custom grinds and kind of get a feel for the type of lines that you like, if you like extra fine lines, what kind of variation you can get on that. But yeah, definitely try them. They're so worth it. Yeah, Paw Paw Gal can tell you. My Platinum Pocket Pen has been inked consistently since I got it. It's extra fine, writes perfectly. I know. What is it with like when you find the perfect pen nib, and ink combination that works really, really well. It's like, if you change it up, you take the risk of just not enjoying it the same way. And so, yeah, I'm totally there. Like if I find the perfect pen because it has a nib that just writes so nicely, makes it so enjoyable. And if I find the right ink, even if it's just black, right? Like if it works really, really well with that nib, and the pen. I'm like, I'm not going to change this up for a while. You put shimmer in your extra fine pens. That you are a risk taker is what you are. And I love it. I think it just depends on the pen, right? Like I find that some pens, you can throw shimmer in even if it's not like a broad nib, and you can get away with it because of, I guess, the feed, you know, all the technical things that allows the shimmer particles to come through and not get stuck. Hi, Jessie. I got the new Tactile Turn Deep Sea Switch pen. Ooh, nice. That's awesome. How are you enjoying it? If you ever see me use black ink, be very concerned. Fountain pen use, take note of that. Because you have so many fun ink colors to choose from. Why would you use black, right? I totally get that. I totally get that. I try not to have too many inks inked up with black or blue. Blue is kind of my safe color, and I try not to do it too much because if I could have just all blue inks, or all of my pens inked up with blue, they would all be different shades, but they would all be blue or teal. And I find that, yeah, it would just be so redundant. I did put a new ink in it this time, but it still writes perfect. Oh, good. That's awesome. So you have a great pen is what you have that will work with the inks. I didn't do shimmer in the platinum because I don't want to ruin it. Yeah, I don't want to ruin it. Yes, that's probably why I haven't really messed with my platinum. Yeah, some pens I'm kind of like that, where I'm just like, I'm not going to mess with it. The niblet drama, Zodiac, coming in hot with the niblet drama. Yeah, I did see that on Instagram. If you don't know what it is, look up, what is it, Fine Writing International. On Instagram, they put up a post explaining their side, I guess. I did find it a little convoluted, maybe a little generic. Not generic, but, you know, I didn't see a lot of details. And I guess, you know, that's just them being a brand. But, you know, you can sort of read into it. And I think there were some comments that were a little bit more expressive. So that's what I'll say about it. Black is boring for ink. Wow, Indy, hot take. Fountain pen use. I never use black ink. Wow. You just... No, I totally get it. Black is boring, but it's also like a safety, it's sort of like an emotional support color, right? Like, I don't know. I think blue is kind of like that for me, but black maybe too. Although I will say, I use platinum carbon black and platinum chokuro, and chokuro is not a boring black ink. I will stand by that. It is not boring. It is super black. It's like driving at night right now. It is that dark. And it's also, it has a little bit of like shine to it because it is very like waterproof. And so it like sits on top of the paper and you notice that when it dries. Oh, maybe it doesn't have a lot of shine. It has like a matte feel to it. Now I have to find it somewhere. Where is it inked up? Hold on. Let me see. Here's my currently inked. Yeah, this one. Platinum Chokuro. It's actually, it's not shiny, it's matte. It's like really matte though. It goes down really, really dark. It's carbon black that's like, it has a shine to it. And Chokuro just like, it stands out. So maybe not like standard black inks, personally, but I do like black inks that are like they have a statement. Yeah, my go-to are black inks that aren't really black. Yeah. What is the shade on black ink? I know. People throwing shade. I do like blue black as well. Like I said, blues are like any shade of blue are I'm good with that. My popcorn and I have been watching that unfold, the drama. Yeah. I know. Oh, you haven't gotten the pen yet, Jesse. But you like the color. Yeah. Inky, I felt more confused about after the post than before. I think I did too. And then I read through some of the comments and then I was like, okay, I guess because I think they replied to Dustin, if I'm not mistaken. I think Dustin sort of commented and then someone else asked questions that were a little bit more forward. And I think they replied to the comment. And I was like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. So if you don't know the Niblet drama, look up Fine Writing International. I forget what the handle is on Instagram. But they did put out a statement, post type thing, that talks about the niblet shape, the pen, and their thoughts on that. What they're willing to share, I guess, thought-wise. My emotional support color is the Calamo ink. Oh, hi, April. Octopus Fluids Elephant Black is my blackest black ink. Ooh, interesting. Black can come in many different varieties. I agree. Yeah, they were trying to be diplomatic and vague on their post. You know what it reminded me of? Probably the Hobonichi post that they did on their paper update for this year, and where they're very like kind of generic about how they were addressing it. It sort of sounded like, they heard the complaints. They hope that the paper for 2026 has improved, or they feel that it has, but also not taking, ownership for what happened or that kind of thing, which, like, look, it's a brand. I don't think they are going to come out anymore. I don't think they're going to be more forward than that, probably. So it is what it is. And but I will say, some of the comments, like if we're talking about the Niblet Fine Writing post, I think some of the comments when I saw it yesterday or whenever it was, they sort of asked more questions and they brought out more of the drama or like what actually is happening. So, yeah. Hi, Thule. How's it going? It's been a little while, right? We've just been in other people's chat streams or stream chats and saying hi back and forth. But it's so good for you to join the stream. I'm glad you're here. Is Esterbrook going to respond? Jesse, I am waiting to see because as far as I know, there hasn't been anything that's come out. But yeah, let me know. Let me know if you do come across something. But as far as I know, they haven't said anything. I think Brad talked about it not too long ago, maybe a little while ago, on his stream and then also on the podcast a little bit. And I think he got a statement back from Esterbrook. And I don't know how much of that he shared, but maybe more will come out. I think more will come out just because Fine Writing International kind of came out with their post. I feel like more will come out. That's people will dig. People will dig. You're extremely delayed. No, you know what, Thule? It is this time. It is this season. It's this month. It's just all the things that are happening around us. I'm the only guy in the room, the one to bring in the gossip. Bart, we're all just trying to paint here. And you just come in and just drop in things, drop in the gossip, drop in tea everywhere. And then fountain pen news and Was it indie? I don't know. Just dropping shade on black ink. I don't know. It would be a good idea if they do. Yeah, Papaga. I don't know if they will. Bart is the drama. Bart is the drama. That's for sure. But speaking of Bart, I'm going to use your nifty nib holder. Still, I love this nib holder, Bart. So thank you again for this. But it is the nib holder that I use for my Kakimori stainless steel nib, and still my go-to. Sorry, not sorry. You are never sorry for bringing the goss. I'm just surprised you didn't drop the heat and run. You're just like, bye. Gotta bounce. Deal with it. Red Kite, I am with you. I'm also very curious if they are going to respond and what they'll say. I don't know. But, you know, I love Esterbrook. I love Esterbrook pens. One of my favorite pens of all time is the Esterbrook Nouveau Bleu with the Techo nib from CY. That combination for me is like the perfect pen with the perfect nib. I have a bunch of favorite pens and favorite nibs, but that combination just works so well for me, and it's blue. So it's just one of those like pens that I love, and I love the shape of the SD. So yeah, I mean, I love Esterbrook and their pens, and we'll see, you know, we'll see what happens and if they say something or what their side is. So but I think like Bart likes to do sometimes, you know, we watch some of the drama unfold or some of the stories, and I think, you know, I like to just be informed. So if something happens or if something is sort of not right, I like to at least know about it so I can make informed choices for myself. And I think that's where things sort of stand, especially in the community when we have, you know, art and ideas and relationships and things like that. And it is a small community, so when something happens or when someone sort of, a brand comes out with a post like Fine Writing did, of course we're going to talk about it and wonder what else is going on, what the other side of the story is, and etc. So I think they need to, even if it's an apology. Yeah, I would love to hear from them, I think. I don't know if we will, but I would love to. I try not to spill tea that isn't mine to spill, but I do try to tell people facts so I understand them if they ask. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the story has sort of continued until Fine Writing International posted, as far as I'm aware, anyways. Like I'm sure people have kind of been wondering and talking and stuff, but have you ever made a Kakimori nib holder with a cap, Zodiac Penco? No, I haven't. Yeah, I think we may have talked about that too. The cap for the Kakimori or the nib holder. Esterbrook, but they need to do that Peanuts pen. Ah, yes. No. Yeah. There are things in this community that are kind of tribal knowledge, and how do people know if nobody will answer questions? Yeah. Don't think there isn't a Papa J prototype SD winging its way to me. Yeah, I mean, you know, Esterbrook is a brand. And obviously, but you know, they're a well-known brand, they're a well-established brand, they're not new, they have been around for a long time in one way or another. And yeah, so but I think people have been asking questions ever since the Esterbrook Niblet came out. So yeah, it's not anything new. It's just that, you know, now one side has sort of come out with something, so, and they've said their piece, and who knows where it's gonna go from here, I think. I've never seen one with a cap, but it'll be very helpful for traveling. Yeah, Red Kite. I think the only nib holder, I actually have one, is the only nib holder I have with a cap is this Tachikawa wooden nib holder, and it has a cap. It's just like a plastic cap, which is fine, but also, you know, like it kind of sits on there, and it's useful for traveling, I think. And the ink, in case you are curious, I always use it when I'm drawing on top of ink. When I've painted fountain pen ink and I want to draw on top of it, I use a Kakimori pigment black ink. Because it sits so nicely on top. Speaking of black ink, this is another good one, especially if you're gonna draw with like a dip pen. I haven't inked up a pen with this pigment ink because it's pigmented. You know, you kind of have to make sure that you use the pen regularly. But for using it with a dip pen and drawing with it, I find that it's really nice. Also, I got the notification that Brad is live, so I think we're going to go over to his stream, say hi, hang out some more there. So as soon as I'm kind of done this, we'll head over. But it's been so fun. I've enjoyed hanging out with you all. Always reminds me why I like streaming, you know, when I kind of think like, should I stream? Like, is anyone going to join and be here? I always end up just having so much fun painting or, you know, talking about pens, talking about stationery, playing around with inks. And it's always so much fun. So thank you so much for being here and for joining and for sharing, even if it's, you know, shade or goss. Yeah, it has been fun. You're going to stir up drama over there? Oh no, yes, we're all going to go over there. I will see you there. Let me just set up the raid and let's see. An addict. Here we go. Oh, thank you so much for joining, Stupid Chalupa. It was so fun. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you next week, right? And go enjoy your stationery. Okay, I started the raid. Go enjoy your stationery. Have so much fun. I'll see you next week. I appreciate you so much for being part of this community. And I'll see you next time, okay? Let me just... I'm so glad you all made this stream. So I'll see you soon. Bye.